good morning. Welcome to Monticello. My name is Chris Clark. I'm president of Xcel Energy's Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota company. We appreciate you all being here today. I can provide you an update on the situation that we're working on at the Monticello nuclear plant. As I think all of you are aware, we've been managing a tritium leak into the groundwater. When we identified that leak, successfully contained that leak, and I think, as you all know, determined that there was no drinking water concern, no safety concern, no concern to the environment. We were capturing the water from the leak. We were able to take that water and process it in our plant. That water does contain tritium. Tritium is created in the normal process of making nuclear energy. It's a very low level of radioactivity. It can't penetrate your skin. And in the quantities that are being discharged, it actually dilutes very quickly. We actually have our own drinking water well there on the site at Monticello. We, of course, checked that. It did not have tritium in it. And we have a series of monitoring wells around the plant. We were able to determine from those wells where this plume of tritiated water was. We were able to know that we were containing that water, and then we've implemented a pumping strategy to actually be able to recover that tritiated water from the ground. We've actually recovered over 30% of that tritiated water at this point. Unfortunately, in the last couple of days, we realized that the catchment that was catching the water from that leak was no longer catching 100% of it, and some of it was spilling over and back into the ground. Much smaller than the original leak, but nonetheless, that actually constitutes a new leak under the Minnesota state rules. So we properly notified the state and NRC as appropriate, and then we determined that while we could fix that, we wanted to actually put this issue behind all of us, and so we are bringing the plant offline over the next couple of days here. We'll let the plant cool. We'll cut that pipe out. We'll send that pipe off to a lab and do a full root cause analysis on why that pipe failed. We'll do a metallurgic analysis, and then we'll determine what sorts of things we need to do for the future of the plant to ensure that we don't have that type of situation again. So we are beginning this afternoon or later today the process of down-powering the plant. We bring the plant down very slowly when we can of course bring it down quickly if we need to, but we prefer to bring the plant down offline slowly. So we'll begin that slow coast down. It'll take a couple of days. We then let the plant cool. We'll send our workers in to cut that pipe out and replace it, take care of the problem, and then whenever we bring a nuclear plant offline, we do a series of other inspections. So we'll go through that inspection checklist and determine if we want to take any other actions. I want to make a couple of points just for clarity. We determined as a conservative decision making here to go ahead and bring the plant offline and repair this. We could have continued to safely operate the plant and simply repaired the catchment, but then of course there was always a risk that it would spill over again and have more tritium enter the groundwater. And we didn't want to take that chance, so we're bringing the plant down. We'll make this repair. It should take care of the issue. The plant continues to operate safely. We have confidence that we'll be able to bring the plant back online and operate safely, but we are on the eve of a refueling outage. Every 2 years we refuel the Monticello nuclear plant, and then it gives us solid performance in between those refueling outages. So we'll determine as we do those inspections whether to enter that refueling outage early or whether we want to bring the plant back online. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or address any issues that I may not have covered with my opening statement there.
One question, when the plant is shut down, is there any continuing or ongoing risk of more tritium water entering the groundwater, or does that cut off the problem?
So when we bring the plant down, that will eliminate the risk of more tritiated water entering the ground. Obviously, we need to make that repair. So as we cut that pipe out, there's always a chance that some water comes out of the system when we do that, but we're talking very minimal. compared to what we've been dealing with here, obviously with the initial leak and the second much smaller leak.
Chris, I know you said it's going to take a few days to shut it down. Will it come back online in a few days, or do you just not know yet?
We have to do those inspections that I mentioned before we'll make the decision whether we want to bring the plant back online or simply enter our refueling outage early.
How long will that process take? Are we talking weeks, days, months?
So bringing the plant down will take a couple of days here. Like I said, we could bring it down faster if we needed to, but we don't need to. So we'll do the slow and steady, bring the plant down. We let things cool, get our crews in there, take care of this pipe, but also begin a series of inspections. That'll occur over the weekend and then into early next week, and then we'll continue our decision making on what our next steps will be.
Chris, do you have any theories on what happened to the pipe initially? I know you're going to look into that, but can you give us any more information on what caused the leak initially?
You know, we don't. We can certainly speculate, but really what we want to do is cut that pipe out and do that full root cause analysis. And we'll do a full, thorough review, not just of that pipe, but also of our systems around that, so we can fully understand what happened here and make the right decisions. As I think many of you know from the previous interviews that you've done, this pipe is actually between two buildings. Those buildings each have very thick concrete walls. This is a difficult place to get in and inspect, particularly when the plant is running. So we'll be able to do a much more thorough evaluation once that plant is offline. We can get in there and really do the proper assessment to know what happened, why it happened, and make sure that we're taking the right actions to make sure it doesn't happen again.
What do you tell those residents that are concerned about safety? You say, there's not a risk, but, when you live here, you own property next to the plant?
So Monticello is a great host community for us. We're really proud of the relationship we have with this community. We want to be a good neighbor to this community. We've known all along exactly what is going on. We knew where this tritiated water was. We knew that it didn't present a public health risk, that it didn't present a drinking water risk, and that it didn't present a safety risk. That said, we want to be transparent in providing information with the community, and as you all know, we've gotten a lot of feedback about how quickly we made information more publicly available. So that's certainly a lesson we take from this. Like I said, we value our relationship with the City of Monticello and the residents here. Our employees live and work in these communities around Monticello, so we are committed to being a good neighbor and making sure that we maintain that public confidence and trust in our operations. That's part of why we're here today with an open house, to answer any questions that residents may have. We put information on our website. We've cited information on the NRC website. We invite any residents, neighbors who have questions or concerns to reach out to us, to reach out to the city and connect, and we're happy to provide any information that will help reassure them of the safety of this situation.
Is the criticism you've received about the months-long last delay part of why you've informed the public faster this time?
Well, absolutely. I think we all take lessons learned from experiences we're having. We've gotten clear feedback that people preferred to have more information sooner. And so obviously as this unfolded, we again made all the proper official notifications, but we also wanted to quickly issue the press release so that all of you can inform the public about what's going on, but also those who are attending any of the open houses that we're hosting or coming to us for questions know that we're here to provide information and answer their concerns.
What was the reason for waiting after that initial leak back in November, I believe it was? Why wait?
So, like I've said before, what our focus was when we realized that there was not a safety risk, there was not a drinking water risk, was really to find that leak, to make sure we were containing the water, and then work with the state agencies to determine how much water was in the ground, understand where that plume was. We actually brought in and drilled additional wells to give us more information and insight into that, and then be able to begin that process of figuring out how we're going to extract that tritiated water and be able to treat it at our plant. And that was our focus. We did make the public disclosure with the NRC. I recognize people don't go on the NRC website every day. So I think one of our lessons here is, even though we followed the proper formal notifications, we have an opportunity to do a better job being transparent with our neighbors, and so that's certainly a lesson we take from this.
How long can the plant be down before it starts to impact electric service, and do you have to kind of make adjustments in other places in the system to compensate?
Sure. So on our electric system, our generating plants are important. Obviously, Monticello is a critical piece. It provides 24-hour-a-day carbon-free energy. It serves over 500,000 customers. But we're in March. The days are getting longer. It's slowly getting warmer here in Minnesota, and this is actually a good time. We call it a shoulder season because we don't have the energy demand that we have in the winter or in the summer. So our other plants can fill in pretty easily for Monticello coming offline. We have enough margin that if we needed to take a plant offline, obviously in the peak summer or the peak winter, we can. But obviously our preference is to keep a good asset like this that's safely operating online to serve our customers. So we can be out as long as we need to do the work we need. And we're assured that we'll be able to have the plant back online really for that summer peak need that hopefully we'll all expect with a warm summer.
If the leak goes unfixed, could the tritium get into the drinking supply?
It's very unlikely that this tritiated water could reach the drinking supply. Monticello's intakes for its drinking water are actually upstream from this. Becker's intakes are actually across the river, so it's really not physically possible for that tritiated water to reach those wells. The sort of the worst case scenario is that with no strategy, the natural groundwater would eventually take that to the river. It does begin dissipating and diluting as it enters that groundwater. And if it were to hit the river, which we're taking actions to make sure that it doesn't, it would dilute so much that it would likely be undetectable just a few yards away. Now we, like I said, have a series of wells to be able to tell us if it were migrating, and it's not. And then we also monitor the river to make sure that we know our plant's impact on the river. So if it were to migrate, we would still be able to test the river and determine if there were measurable levels, but the volume of water in the river is such that we would not expect that. And in fact, we've done modeling to assure ourselves that that is the case. Nonetheless, our focus is contain this in underneath and around our plant where it is now. Don't let it leave our property. Remove that tritiated water from the ground. We're over 30% right now. We're taking a very slow and steady approach to that so that we can pull that out over the next year and be able to properly take care of it.
Chris, so last year the plant celebrated its 50th anniversary. Is the pipe in question part of the infrastructure of the original facility?
I believe it is, and one of the things we will do is go back through all the records and assure that we know, what's original equipment and what has been replaced. As you're well aware, we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars as we've run Monticello over those 50 years, and so as we add ask the NRC for permission to add additional years to the plant's operation, we want to inventory the age of everything in the plant and make sure we're dealing with whatever we need to update. In the industry, that's called a process of aging management. We take it very seriously, the NRC takes it very seriously, and that's really a part of that whole subsequent license renewal process that the NRC just had a hearing on here in Monticello a couple of nights ago.
And is Excel available to provide a diagram of where the leak was on the property?
I think we can provide that. I don't know that we've provided, I think we've provided a map that shows where the wells are. I don't know that we've identified where the leak is exactly on that, but I think our nuclear folks who are going to be here today can sort of pinpoint that on the map for you. Right, we can identify that on the map, yes.
Chris, was the leak in the pipe, first of all, was it due to corrosion of the pipe? Second of all, you mentioned this idea there was a catchment system put up to catch in rainwater. What does that mean, a catchment system?
Sure.
And
So
again, was the pipe corroded? Is that why it leaked?
yeah, so Mike, we don't know the cause of the leak. Obviously, with a pipe of that age, we can all speculate. But we really don't want to speculate here. What we want to do is cut that section of pipe out, get the full metallurgic analysis, and find out what caused that failure. The catchment system, you know, as I said, this is in between two buildings with very thick concrete walls. So we actually cut away a piece of one of those concrete walls and essentially slid a catchment system container then in underneath that pipe to catch the water that was spilling out from the leak and then be able to contain that. So it,
This is like a metal container.
it's a,
Underneath with a leak.
yeah, I mean, it's a nuclear plant, and I'd like to make it sound really technical, but essentially we put something in there to be able to capture that water and then be able to pump that water into our water treatment system at the nuclear plant.
When you replace the pipe, are you just replacing the problem section, or are you do the whole thing of the pipe?
You know, I'd have to get back to you on just how much pipe we're going to replace. You know, this is part of an overall big system, so clearly we're not replacing the entire system, but my expectation is we're going to cut out sufficiently on both sides of the walls so that we're able to visually see the pipe that we're not replacing and assure the condition and really replace that part that's in such a difficult area to get a visual on.
So basically, the catchment system, it overflowed. I mean, it caught the leak, but the leak was strong enough that the catchment system couldn't deal with it all, so you had water.
Mike, you're exactly right. Originally, we were catching 100% of that water, and then we hit a situation where water was spilling over. And under the rules, that's technically a new leak, but it's really coming from that same failure in the pipe. And we had prevented more water from getting in the groundwater. In this second situation, we had several hundred gallons that went in as compared to the larger leak that we had previously.
In the well reading there, that new leak, what did it go up to? What was the picocurie rating? And did any of the surrounding wells after this new leak have a picocurie rating above 20,000, above the EPA cutoff?
So, Pat, I'll have you check my answer here, but we really haven't seen a change in the picocurie in the wells due to this leak. It was really being able to tell from our inspections, we did daily inspections on that catchment system, that we were no longer capturing 100% of the water. So we may see slight fluctuation in picocuries in our monitoring wells, just because we're pumping and that is moving groundwater. So we'll see, day to day, we may see picocurie changes. But really what we've seen over time is that the well directly underneath the plant is the one with the highest picocuries. That next well has seen a significant drop in picocuries, which suggests both that we're experiencing dilution from the tritiated water from the tritium that reached the water, and that also our pumping strategy is successful in pulling that tritiated water back up.
Well, the well, the immediate well, is it actually beneath the plant or adjacent?
So there is one well that is immediately underneath the plant, and then there's another well that is right outside, essentially outside the walls of the plant.
And the well that's immediately beneath, is that still above 20,000 with the rest of them below?
I'll defer Pat for a little help from you. I believe we are above 20,000 at the well right underneath the plant.
That's correct.
That's correct.
If there's no danger to the public or to the river related to these leaks that have happened, then what's the point of fixing them?
That's a great question. So we have a permit at Monticello that's a zero liquid discharge permit. So we obviously don't want to be spilling things because we're out of compliance with our permit if we do that. We also take, as the industry, unintended leaks very seriously. We want to know exactly what's happening when we operate these plants. We know that something has happened that we didn't want to happen. So we feel that it is our responsibility, both under that permit and as our obligation as a nuclear operator, to take care of that situation, to bring that water back up. It's part of our overall assurance to the public that we're operating as safely and in an environmentally friendly manner as we can.
And for what reasons would tritium leaks violate a permit?
Well, we're simply a zero discharge permit plant. So when we have an unintended discharge like this, There's the risk that we're not in compliance with our permit. That's in part the reason for the notification of the agencies. But, you know, like I said, we live and work in these communities. We appreciate the great resource that we have here in the community and with the river next door. So we want to show the public that we treat this seriously. We spilled something, we want to clean it up, and that's what we're doing.
And what is the entity that gives the permit?
So we have multiple permits, of course. We're very heavily regulated in our nuclear plants. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission regulates us for safety day in and day out. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is the lead state agency, but we also, of course, are working very closely with the Department of Health in Minnesota and the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. And then we have plenty of other agencies that also regulate us, but those are really the core agencies that are involved working with us on this situation, and obviously we're responding to them as we do the work here.
And if I wanted to talk to the entity that has the permit that you would be in violation of, then which entity would that be?
So I would direct you to the PCA as the entity that's really leading their efforts, and you're also welcome to reach out, I'm sure, to any of the agencies. And the NRC has dealt with this issue not just at our plant, but across the majority of nuclear plants. And so there's good information on their website about tritium and tritium releases. In each case, the NRC has thoroughly reviewed these. They will very thoroughly review this one as well. And in each of those cases, they found that there was no risk to the public. So they're a good source of information as well. Any other questions? If not, I might just say I really appreciate all of you coming back to Monticello, for those of you who weren't here the other night, and helping provide information about this. We're obviously here to answer questions. We're looking forward to speaking with any residents who have concern, but we remain convinced that there is no threat to drinking water. We're meeting our safety obligations. We want to continue to be a good neighbor here to Monticello, and we're very appreciative of the city and all of the other agencies who are working with us on this situation. So happy to answer any further questions that any of you have.
Thank you.
Thanks.